17,000 plus courses that you can access freely. Whether you are a student, a professional looking to upskill, or simply someone who has a passion for learning, Infosys Springboard has got you covered. If you have not downloaded our app, I request you to download the Infosys Springboard app and start learning today. You can find the QR code here. Moreover, don't forget to follow us on social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Now, without further ado, let's get this started today. We are thrilled to have Balaji Rajappa as an educator with us who will be presenting the uh, who will be presenting the session for navigating the storms crisis communication. Balaji, over to you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Siddharth. Thanks for setting the context. And hello, everyone. Very good evening. Before I begin, I know that I'm sure that I would be audible and visible, but just to get a quick confirmation from all of you, if I'm clearly audible and visible, can I get a thumbs up or a yes or a GTG in the chat window? Okay, thank you. I can see a lot of thumbs up and a lot of yes. Fantastic. So let me quickly share my screen as well so that I can get another confirmation right away. Okay. Yeah, one more confirmation. I am sure that my screen is also visible. Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks a lot for the thumbs up. So keep it going. This response can help us to take the session forward without any interruptions. Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Balaji Rajappa from Infosys. I'm based out of Chennai, DC. I am a Dale Carnegie certified virtual facilitator and LearnShip certified global English professional. I am an engineer by qualification, but I've been trainer for quite some time now. Let's make this session an interactive one. So whenever you have a doubt, whenever you have something to share, something that is running over your mind, it can be a different perspective. It could be your experience that you have witnessed in the past as well. Please don't hesitate to share it in the forum. You can put it in the chat window. Since we have a lot of participants, we are not enabling the unmute option just to ensure that there are no background noises and interruptions. So please feel free to put it in the chat window. I will always have an eye on the chat window. I can go ahead and share the points on behalf of you to everyone in the bridge. All right. So this is just something that I wanted to tell. And yeah, so there are some questions that I will need to skip. We will go ahead and answer it towards the end, like will you get certificates and all those things. I will answer it towards then, not now. All right. So we will take questions only that is very much relevant to the topic that we are discussing, not post the topic and stuff. All right. Okay. So before I begin, let me ask you a question. Now imagine you're working in an organization, any organization, right? And you see that there are sometimes the customer or the end users of your organizations are coming back with a complaint that you're not delivering quality products or service. Now for those of you who already are working, you might know the difference between a product and a service, right? Now let us say that if you're a student, right, imagine you're working in a manufacturing organization where you're manufacturing a product, or you're working on, let's say, providing service for someone, and there is always a customer feedback that the output or the product or the service that they are receiving is not up to the mark, and there is always a kind of dissatisfaction with them, right? Now what is this? Is this a problem or is this a crisis? I hope you understood the context, right? The customers of your organization or the place where you're working always comes back with the feedback that it's not going very well for them. You can put it in the chat window whether if it is a crisis or a problem. What is the situation? Is this a problem or is this a crisis? When the customers are complaining that there is no quality, okay, Amisha, this is problem, Akash, this is crisis, okay, Tejas is this problem, okay, Rishita, this is problem as well. So many people are going through problem. I don't see anyone upping. Okay, Sahil is after crisis. Okay, Apurva is after crisis again. Okay, I can see few of the answers that says crisis. Okay. Now to add a bit of context here, to add some clarity. So many of you have problem, right? Why do you think is it a problem? And those of you who is in crisis, why do you think crisis is not a problem? In one line. Why do you think it's a problem? And why do you think it's a crisis if you opted for any of these? Because you can see a mix and match of answers in the chat window. Okay. Mosam says crisis because of lack review from the user. Okay, Mosam got it. Ganga says problem due to irresponsibility. Got it. Akshat says it can lead to huge loss to organization. Very good perspective, Akshat. Okay. Kalevani says crisis defines a customer state of mind. All right. Good thought. Interesting thought, Kalevani. Okay. Samruddhi says crisis is when a system can collapse if not solved immediately. All right. Okay. Mandiya says problem because manageable issue with clear solution. Okay. Crisis is sudden, severe, urgent situation needing immediate action. Wow, that's clear, precise, and fantastic answer. Okay, Suhana says it's a problem because it can be handled and there's no urgency to resolve it. No urgency. I would disagree politely on that part. Okay, Vigneshwaran says crisis is long term, problem is short term. Okay, fantastic, Vigneshwaran. Avinash says, okay, I think there could be issue with your and Avinash. Okay, Manaswini says it's not crisis because here the product is not lacking and the problem it's need to be solved. All right. Lakshya says, okay, there is a crisis if there is lack of communication. Okay. Muki says because customer is not satisfied. Okay, easily solved. Apura says lack of interaction is the problem. Okay, crisis because we have not got the requirement from the customer. Okay. Okay, Ifra has given a different answer. Ifra says from employee point of view can be called crisis as lack of good response from customer and problem from general user or customer point of view. Okay, that's interesting. Problem because it's not habitual term but for a temporary issue says Mamalita. Okay, Shreyan says problem because lack of communication. If customer complains that a product is not good, it is a problem that can escalate into a crisis if not addressed promptly and effectively. Wow, one more precise answer we have from Shruti. Fantastic, Shruti. Okay. Arun says it's a crisis because it knows many people. Okay, that's really nice. Okay, so many answers coming in. Okay. Okay, we have one more interesting answer. A crucial or a decisive point or situation, especially a difficult or unstable situation involving a one word involving an impending change. Okay, fantastic, Charmi. All right, Madhukar says crisis due to less features than the other brands in the market. Okay, Muki says it's a problem because of customers problem we can solve. Okay, problem because of on that particular industry says okay. Fantastic. All right. So you're almost close, I would tell. The situation or the context I gave is a problem and not a crisis, right? Because when it comes to a problem, it's not like you have so much of time, but you have a proper or you have sufficient time to go ahead and respond to it. All right. But whereas when it comes to crisis, it has got to be a reactive response, right? Because see, generally, it is always a best practice not to react, right? When I mean react, it's very instantaneous, it's very quick, and it happens just like a chemical reaction, right? But whereas when it comes to response, you have some time for breather. What I mean, you will have a mindful response in that situation. That's what we call as respond. All right. But whereas when it comes to a problem, it applies the same. You have that mindful time to go ahead, introspect, and respond. That's why that's a problem solving. Whereas why we are calling it as crisis communication is because it has to be impromptu. It has to be all of a sudden, right? So that's the I would say that's the drawback of crisis, or that's the difficult part of crisis. But it doesn't mean it is not manageable. It can be managed very well if you have a plan, if you have an idea of the do's and don'ts for a crisis. All right, so an example of crisis could be, let's say, the touchwood, it doesn't happen, but the place where you're working, if there is some immediate problem. Let's say if there is a fire alarm that has gone, or if, let's say that there is an accident, or let's say that there is a virus attack, or let's say that there is some outage, or there is some cyber security issue. So depending on the industry or depending on the firm you're part of, water crisis in desert. Yes, Manaswini, right? So when people are there in the desert, it can become a crisis. Why? Because without water, people may not be able to survive. It's a basic need for them, right? And it can become, if it is in a long-term basis, it can affect their livelihood, and it can completely create a haywire situation for them. So in that case, it becomes a crisis, right? And if it is a problem, it is in the starting stage, right? So I think crisis is to connect the various internal stakeholders of a company with one another, says Shravani. Definitely, Shravani, both in case of problem and crisis as well, all the stakeholders are supposed to be involved. But there is a difference when you handle a problem and a crisis. We'll talk about that in the upcoming slides. All right. So this is something that I wanted to absolutely, Sanika. Crisis creates a serious impact. All right. The damage is very severe when it is a crisis. Of course, the damage will be there in the problem as well, but you have some time to, like put a full stop or solve the problem, right? So that's something we need to remember and understand, right? So I'm going ahead. These are the few points that we will be discussing in the next 45 minutes. One is defining crisis, which you have almost done. Second is types of crisis, and the next one is identifying key audience and the channel of communication. Next one is communication strategy. At the last, we will reflect upon the points that we will be discussing. All right. So these are few points we are going to cover. Okay. Now, when it comes to defining crisis, like all of you said, anything that can have an impact in a negative manner, or something that can cause a negative impact with us, can be called as a crisis, right? And the second category for a situation or for something to be a crisis is, it creates or it puts us in difficulty, trouble, or danger, right? So that's something, the level, or when you measure it, of course not a typical measuring scale, but if you have to compare it with something, it's going to have a surmounting effect, right? The third one is something very interesting for all of us. It can also refer to a critical point where a significant decision can be made, often with the potential for a major change or outcome. Now here we are not telling whether the outcome is going to be positive or negative, right? But there is going to be a outcome for sure. Now, for example, let's take an organization, for example, right? If the organization is in a loss, right, that's the starting point of a problem. But when there is a continuous loss, when the organization is going for a sink, right, that's when we call it as a crisis, right? So that's where a major decision has to be made, because it means that something that they are working upon or something that they're diligently following is not going in the right direction, and some changes have to be made. Now that particular change can either bring about a positive impact or a negative impact, right? So quote unquote, we can go ahead and have a lot of example related to crisis, right? So I would pick two of the examples in this case. One example is the famous incident that most of us should be aware of, and we could have heard as well. The example of Apple, right? So there was a time, late 90s, Apple was in a downfall, right? It was in a major crisis where it was almost bankrupt, right? It was not bankrupt, but it was almost bankrupt. It was really struggling to find its real mojo, and things were not going great for the key decision makers at Apple as well. Now that's when Steve Jobs was brought back into the Apple, and he started working with a small team where he thought of coming up with a product that can really solve their crisis and bring them out of that particular situation. So there was one major investment from another organization, which was Microsoft as well. Now, when Steve Jobs came in, he started working on something called as the Apple iPod, right? Now, it took some time for him to come up with a particular device called iPod. So he understood the areas where iPod can be really helpful and meaningful to the end user, which is the customers, people like us, right? And when iPod was revealed, so he did a famous marketing launch for iPod. And once iPod was released, it was making huge sales. It had a very good positive reception, right? Now, this is where the decision that Steve Jobs decided is one of the perfect example for decision making during crisis, right? One more example that I can share with all of us is that Amazon, right? So when Amazon was losing 1 million in a regular time interval, I think it was 1 million per quarter. Now that's when people lost hopes, and people were also thinking that Amazon is going to bomb, right? So people had this people had this misconception that it's not going to be a profitable venture. Now it was during the 2000s, that particular period of time. Now that's when the decision was taken by Jeff Bezos to ensure that Amazon doesn't sell only their products. So it became a retailer where it paved way for everybody to come in, right? Now in this crisis point of time, everybody thought he is taking a decision that will not give great results, or that may not really work out very well for the organization, and it was assumed to be an incorrect decision. Now that's where this really went out in his favor, and Amazon started becoming a profitable venture because he opened the floor for other competitors to come in, because he thought that when multiple vendors are there in Amazon, so if one someone who manufactures a book gives it at one particular price, the other person is going to give it at a very less price. So whenever there is a less priced product in a particular retail portal, people will eventually go ahead and choose them, right? So this is how things can happen, right? But we'll have to be very cautious. We'll have to think of the consequences. We will have to analyze the things. But the thing is, it has to be very, very quick. We don't have the time to do a review and stuff like that. So we need to have a proper plan in place, right? Sure, Lilambika, we'll talk about what are the steps we need to take, what are the consequences, and what are the actions, do's, don'ts, and all those things we will take. We will definitely talk about. All right. So that's the point is that we will talk about. Now, this is the one more clarifying point and defining the crisis, right? So all crises are problems, but all problems are not crisis, right? Because if we stop that problem, if we resolve the problem in that particular phase, definitely it is not going to get into the crisis phase, right? Recognizing the distinction between the two is the crucial for effective crisis management, because when sometimes there are situations where you can assume a crisis as a problem and think that you have so much of time to answer, but before you realize it is a crisis, things would have got done and dusted. So it's very important for us. Now somebody asked, right, what's the first thing to do? First thing is to acknowledge that you are in a crisis situation, nothing else apart from that, right? There are so many things to be done, but first thing is realize that there is a crisis, right? So it's one example, maybe on a lighter note I can give is the Titanic example, right? So when there was a hole in Titanic, people thought it was not a big deal. They thought it was a problem, but it was a crisis, right? Because it brought the entire ship down. So not responding in a timely manner, what is the only similarity for crisis and problem? Both are tough situations. That's the only similarity, right? In both the cases, something is not going well. In both the cases, you have to take some decision or the other. But when it comes to problem, you can rectify it if it doesn't work, right? When it comes to crisis, still you can rectify it, but the damage is going to be a lot, right? The damage or the consequence can be multifold than the problem, because in problem one solution doesn't work, you might have the opportunity, a chance, or a time window to go ahead and explore other options. But whereas when it comes to crisis, right, it is very difficult to have that plenty of time or plenty of time or a good scope over there, right? Fantastic. So somebody said, yeah, first we need to understand the meaning of problem and a crisis. Yes, that's what I'm talking here. Like I said, sometimes what is the difference between crisis and a problem that makes faster sense? Okay. So Kennedy, like I said, right, you need to understand like what is the impact, what is the consequence. If something has been happening for a long time, right, when you don't see a good result, like I said, right, so in both the cases, both the examples I gave, yes, Pavan Teja, in case if they ask, if you are in a crisis, if there is an issue, how do you handle it? You need to have a proper response with you, right? We cannot say that we will reach out to someone who's very expert in this. We cannot say that, I will take help from others, because you need to know the important steps. You need to know the important procedure. Of course, we cannot be very specific because the industry, the domain might differ, but we do have a certain template, or we do have certain strategies that needs to be followed and that needs to be considered. Exactly, Naga. Problem needs to be solved. Crisis needs to be handled. So, which means, fantastic, Naga. Thanks for writing it here, right? So, when a problem is there, you can solve it. But when a crisis is there, it means that the problem has become a bigger thing here, and you can only manage it, right? So, you can only manage and give a proper response to it, right? Fantastic. So, by understanding the unique characteristics of crisis, organizations can develop proactive strategies to prevent escalation and respond effectively when a crisis occurs. Now, this is where we can take an interesting example. If you have seen, or if you have, the problem can range from a small concern, okay? That's nice. So if you see, all the institutions or organizations will have a plan for whenever there is a situation. Like, for example, when there is a fire accident, they will have an evacuation plan. Now, whenever there is a natural disaster, or whenever there is something happening, they will have something over there, which is a properly planned way of having, ensuring that everybody is safe. This is one way of handling a crisis, right? Where you have a proper plan in place. You know what are the things should be done and shouldn't be done, right? So this is what we call it as a crisis, right? So what is the differentiation between crisis and that's what we are talking about here, Suhaina. All right. So these are the differences, right? We'll see one couple of differences. So when it comes to the crisis, larger in scale and impact, and often affecting multiple stakeholders, it affects so many people over there. The time frame, like I said, requires immediate attention and resolution. You don't have so much of time to think, so much of time to understand, experiment. In software industry, okay, there is a question. In software industry, can we use or implement this? Absolutely, Rutuja, it applies to all the domain and all the industries, right? So you irrespective of let's say the place, or irrespective of the industry, the methodology will be the same, right? So but the solutions can differ. If it is a software, you need to go ahead with a different solution. If it is, let's say, manufacturing, you need to go ahead with a different approach over there. All right, the impact, right? Can we say that if the, yes, definitely, Akshat, wonderfully said. If the problem is not solved correctly, it will definitely become a crisis for sure, right? So that's what I said, right? When an organization is not able to understand the needs of the customer, and when the issue is prolonging for a longer period of time, it will result in multiple other things. For example, the company will face a loss. Definitely, yes, Shivani, that's one of the best. So Shivani is saying, can we call Corona as a crisis? Yes, it was a pandemic and it was a health crisis, right? So definitely it is a crisis, all right, and it was managed as well, right? Okay, is the problem makes crisis or crisis makes problem? I think we saw this in the previous slide. All crises are have some sort of a problem in them, but not all problems can become is addressed at the right point of time. If it is addressed at the right moment, it definitely cannot get into the point of a crisis. I think I've said this, that this is important for interview as well. Okay, how can you define a problem and crisis in one word? Okay, in one word, all right. So if I have to give in one word, a problem where you can have a solution. When it comes to crisis, you need to manage. So problem is solution, crisis is managed. So these are the two words I would tell, one for each. All right. Okay. So control is often beyond the organization's immediate control, requiring swift and decisive action. So you need swift actions. Now, emotion, crisis can put you in high levels of stress, anxiety, and uncertainty. All right. So we need to ensure that we are having a careful consideration before we do anything, right? Now, when it comes to a problem, it can be applied anywhere, Ganesh, not just automobile, not just software. It can be applied even when there is a crisis at your locality, even when there is a natural disaster as well, right? Don't worry. Like I said, it's not just your organization, not just with one place. a crisis can happen anywhere, right? Now, because of not having proper, because of not having proper environmental, awareness, that can lead to natural disasters. This can become a crisis, right? So when there is a flood, it's a crisis. When there is continuous rainfall, it is a problem, right? But when there is a flood, it's a crisis. Now you need to know that how do you manage the crisis. Okay, don't worry. I will talk about the steps on how to manage this crisis in the upcoming slides. Alright. So when it comes to problem, the scope is typically small and scale and impact. So you will not be able to look at how can will solve. Whereas contrasting in the previous slide, when it came by crisis, the scope is very wide and vast. You may not be sure of where to start, how to start, and all that stuff. Alright. Time frame, it can be a reasonable time frame. Problem, like I said, in a problem, you have some time frame. Impact is limited in a particular group or a particular domain. Now, control is often within the organization's control to manage it effectively. So there is some sort of control with us. In our emotion, it can cause some stress, but generally manageable. These are the differences between a problem and a crisis. All right. And take a pause here. Are we good till here? Any questions? Any doubts? We have defined crisis. Okay, I can see a lot of thumbs up. Can we have a GTG? There are no doubts, no questions, and if you are good till here, in case if I'm going fast or slow, please let me know as well. Okay, I can see a lot of yes. We will definitely talk about that, Prince. So Prince has asked a question, what can we do if there is a productivity crisis? We will talk about that in the upcoming slides. See that if strategy can work for you. If not, we will have to look at some other strategy. All right. Fantastic. So these are the key audience checklist. So Prince, it will be useful for everyone. Like I said, not just for working professionals, it will be useful for students, entrepreneurs, professionals, kids, everyone may encounter problems and might be in a situation where there could be a crisis for sure. All right. Okay. Now, these are the key audience checklist. All right. So the first one is emergency responders. Who are those individuals who need to be informed about this? Right? Investigators. Someone who will be investigating this. So I've kept this twice because within the team there will be someone who is going to investigate this. So once this crisis has occurred, you need to have someone externally, right? Because the first investigators is someone within your team who will quickly investigate and come up with a solution or action items. The second investigator mentioned at the bottom is someone who will be there externally. So this is the external investigators who can work as consultants or who can give you the second opinion after the crisis has occurred, right? So how you have responded and stuff like that. And the third one is neighbors, right? So neighbors should also be informed. Let's say that, for example, there is a flood. Okay, sure, Mjala. Let's say when there is a flood, right, in your particular locality, it's not that you'll have to take care of yourself, your street, your neighborhood. It would be really necessary and it is important for us to inform this to the next locality as well, because they can also get affected, right? And local media, general public, family and friends. So I'm putting in the audience checklist is for general purpose, not in terms of organization, not in terms of the natural things that occurs, not in terms of the educational institution or anything as such. All right. So the general public can be your stakeholders if you're part of an organization. Suppliers, someone who will work with you. Customers, right? You need to inform about the customers as well. Employees who are working internally, and investigators. So like I said, this should be the external investigators, right? And stakeholders who has a equal responsibility, they should also be informed about this. All right. So you need to always have a double check. Let's say when there is a crisis, right? Rather than thinking what I should tell and how I should tell, think of the people you should tell first, right? So they will be the ones who can help you. Now, for example, if you give it to the investigators within your team, they will know the quick action item that is supposed to be done. Now, every organization will have a DRR, which is disaster recovery, right? So that team will be in action whenever there is a disaster. So they know the do's and don'ts. They will be the brand ambassadors. They will be they will be the people who can connect the missing dots and help people, right? So you can bring in people who will take that accountability and who will help you in resolving things, right? So the one important thing is the crisis team, right? A crisis team, every natural disaster is almost a crisis, Rajeshwari, for sure, right? So a crisis team should have a leader and the roles should be clarified and there should be a chain of command, right? Now, let me ask a question here. What do you think a leader will do when it comes to a crisis? Or what do you think the leader's role is when it comes to a crisis? Okay, manage the team, fantastic prince. Okay, what else? Guides a safe way. Okay, to give direction. All right. Now let me give you this imaginary scenario. To take inputs, awareness, keep everyone in check. Okay, motivate, absolutely. Make a solution. Take opinion from the team. All right. Take input. Okay. Ask the situation. All right. To handle the team. All right. Be supportive. Okay. They give the guidance. Yes, they should give the guidance. Okay. Leader can take good direction to get out from the crisis. All right. Generate an action plan to solve step by step. Fantastic, Kushagra. Okay, Aishu says direction, guidance, and motivate opinion for solutions. Follow the plan, says Suchita. Okay. Venkat says follow the plan. Okay. Now let me ask you this. So there are two suggestions coming in from two individuals when there is a crisis. Now what should a leader do? Should a leader take the right decision or should a leader facilitate a discussion here? Coordination. Okay, fantastic, Praveen. Facilitate. Okay, facilitate discussion, clarity, facilitate discussions here. Tejaswini says discussion. Take a right decision, says Veena. Okay, guidance, planning, execution, and take decisions. Okay, the Pavan Teja says while crisis leader needs to be in front of the team and lead them front. When a problem, leader will be making the team solve it. Okay, fantastic. So let me put it this way. All right. So it depends on the situation again. Let's say that when there is no time for a discussion, like most of you said, the leader has to take a decision. Right. That's where taking decision becomes very tricky and very dicey. But in case, let's say that there is a scope for small discussion that can happen, right? That situation a leader can facilitate a discussion because in that situation it is very important to understand the pros and cons of each decision. So that can happen only when there is a discussion, because the general responsibility of a leader is to ensure that the right decision is taken, and it doesn't mean that the leader should take the right decision, right? So like few of you said, when there is no time, like when they call it as blitzkrieg, right? So when there is a immediate solution has to be arrived at, right? Just at the lightning speed or no time to respond, so then we can't have sit and properly discuss, right? But when there is a time for discussion is supposed to happen. All right, so the next one, that's what a leader, and a leader is someone who has to clarify the roles and responsibilities. Like, okay, person A will take care of the communication. A should go ahead and inform everyone that there is a situation, these are the do's and don'ts you should be doing. Now B will ensure that A is doing things rightly, and maybe they can split the roles and responsibility. Now C can take care of informing or can take care of the corrective measures. For example, let's say that there is a flood that is happening, right? Now one should go ahead and inform all the village, all the residents. One should inform the press and the volunteers and welfare group. Now one will be going ahead and preparing rescue team. Now one will be leading the food provisions and grocery team. One individual should lead the medical. When I mean lead, coordinate, right? One should work with the medical team, and one can work with the common public to ensure that they are driven to safety, right? One can take in charge of the logistics, like transportation. When I mean transportation for shipping all those stuffs, like I said, provisions, groceries, safety materials, water, all those things, right? And one can work with EB, frontline workers. So like this, we can definitely have multiple roles that should be played. Similarly, in an organization, let's say when there is a fire accident, or let's say that there is a alarm that is going on. Now we should know who should be talking to the security individuals, who should be talking to the people working in the office, who will be going for inspection, ensuring that everybody is out, right? So that should be done. Chain of command. Now there should be a clearly established chain of command. It's not that when I say a chain of command, not that there is a strict authoritative kind of a leadership, but to ensure that multiple decisions or multiple thoughts don't come in and make it a clumsy one. In order to have a streamlined flow of instructions, we have this thing called as a chain of command, right? That's the point of having a clearly established chain of command, right? So these are few strategies that we need to remember. First one is always respond as early as possible, right? Role play a lot of others with the leader. Yes, right. So leader has to identify if somebody is not there, who will take. For example, let's say that there is a rescue team that was going to one place and they are not able to reach. Now, who do you ask to support them? Do you ask someone from the frontline workers team, or do you ask someone from the team that is preparing food, who is supposed to be a backup over there? So these kind of decisions, leader has to come into the picture for sure, right? Now, when it comes to strategies for communication, I've kept within an hour. This is in terms of organization, right? The reason is very simple. Let me ask you this. Let's say that there is a continuous situation. For example, let's say that there is continuous rainfall, right? Would you want to know when the rainfall would be stopping, or would you be okay if you just get an idea of how much amount of rainfall is going to be there for the next 24 hours? What is your first priority? Some update or the complete solution? Weather report, okay. Aishwarya says weather report. Checking, okay. Update, how much rainfall, some update, right? Complete solution says Reno, okay. Getting the vegetables, okay, that's interesting. We can't predict the rainfall, okay. We can't be sure of it, but we can do predict. Yeah, prediction is what we are doing right now, if I'm right. Some update, right? So in other words, right, when there is a situation, when there is a crisis, the first thing people expect is update or response or first communication. They don't immediately look for a solution. Let's say when you're working in an organization, right? And let's say that okay, imagine you have ordered something over online, some particular vendor, I'm not naming them, all right? You have received a product or a parcel that you did not order, so there is some misplaced order that you have received, okay. Now when you call someone and when you get an update that it will be immediately, they will be correcting it and they will be sharing your product, will you be okay with that or will you not be okay? Okay, right? Fantastic. This is what immediate update is. They are not telling that it's not resolved yet, but they are giving you a clarity that it will be resolved in this period of time. We need this much amount of time. We acknowledge the problem here. So this is what we call, right? Always acknowledge that you are in a crisis. Some mistake has happened. So the first response is always crucial and it is very important, right? And share the truth. No cooked up information, no ambiguous information, right? Because it will set the direction for the conversation to take place. Now I have encountered this at times. So once I ordered something, I ordered let's say a speaker and I got a TV remote. So when I called the customer care, they acknowledged it and they were very much polite enough to admit their mistake, and they did continuous follow-ups as well. I really liked it and I didn't trouble them after that, because I know that my situation has been understood and they are taking care of it, and and it will be resolved. But when they don't respond to me or when I don't have the trust, I will definitely call to them multiple times, right? It is because I have not got the trust, right? There is no trust factor in that. So the first communication is very, very important, right? Whatever you tell them that this is what we know, this is what we are aware of, right? Now somebody asked, right, will this really help in my job interview? Now this is the first thing you need to do, that when there is a crisis, I will acknowledge the crisis, I will state whatever I know, I will convey the plan that I would be having in my say situation, or I will do things that is in my control. Now you can't promise things that is not in your control. Now imagine the customer care representative had said to me that we will replace in 15 minutes. I don't think that would have gone very well, because there is an order that has been misplaced. Now that cannot be corrected in 15 minutes, right? It's going to take so much of time. And I'm at the spur of the moment, I might believe it and say, okay. But if it is not done in 15 minutes, that's where I will become furious, or I'm going to lose my patience and trust as well, right? So the first communication is the key here, right? So acknowledge the situation, convey the truth, whatever you know, and speak out your plan, right? Acknowledge whatever you know as well, right? So that will alleviate miscommunication as well, rather than rumors, or rather than causing damage to the brand. It will restore that faith and trust. All right, so these are the strategies that you need to keep in mind. Now, what is the channel when there is a situation, right? Now, like, there are different types of crisis. One can be personal, one can be organizational, one can be economical. Each crisis will affect anyone. Like, one crisis can affect financial, which is economic. One crisis can affect the well-being, that is personal, and one can affect the brand of the or brand value of the organization, right? Okay, how much part strategy plays in project? Can you elaborate that, Pavan Teja? I don't understand your query. Okay, so three things that are very important are the location. Now, if you see most of the movies as well, they have a war room kind of a setup, right? That's where when there is a problem, they go to the war room, because it's not that it's a fancy thing, but that's where everybody will come together. That's where they will have a common place for them to connect and work together. All right, what's strategy in communication? Yeah, that's the strategy, right? So this is the strategy, Pavan. The first thing is that you need to acknowledge, you need to speak the truth, and you need to be very quick, right? That's the strategy. All right, okay. The three things are location, which is you should have a common location. So when that's why we have, when there is an emergency situation, we should all assemble to the parking area, or every organization and college will have. When there is a fire, you need to be here. When there is an earthquake, you need to be here, right? So these kind of things. And who should have access to that location, right? Who are the key stakeholders? Backup plan. If that war room doesn't work, if that doesn't work, what is the other option you have? And in addition to the solutions as well, if this doesn't work, what's the backup plan? If this team is not able to do it, which other team can do it? So you need to have backup plan for everything, right? So in addition to that, what are the tools for crisis communication? So these are the exact tools or templates that we were talking about. The first one is a hold statement. Second one is a boilerplate. Third one is a reactive statement. And fourth one is apology. All right. So these are the different tools for crisis communication. Before getting into that, any question, any doubt, any thoughts? Are we all good? Are we all on the same page? Why apology? I will tell you why apology for sure. Okay, fantastic. Definitely, I will explain these terms. That's why I wanted to confirm. Okay, whole statement. All right. Now, whole statement is nothing but it's something that can be shared, or that's given to the important stakeholders and people once there is a crisis, right? Now, for example, when an organization is not successful, or when there's a problem, or when something didn't go well according to their plan, they will release a whole statement, right? They will ensure that some whole statement is being given, so it will help them to manage that particular moment and work on the crisis. It should be short and simple, it should be factual as well, action oriented, time bound, and empathetic. So for example, we understand the amount of inconvenience you have to go through, right? So this is how the customer care representative in fact was conveying, right? They said, yes, I'm very sorry that there is a mistake in the parcel, and this is the first time, or you are encountering it for the second time, which I really understand. So I will be immediately writing about this to the supplier, and within 24 hours we'll be resolving it. I do know that this could have caused a deep trouble with you. I'm really sorry for that on behalf of the organization or because of the team. And please do feel free to reach out to us any other concerns. So whatever statements I said indicates a whole statement, like it was short and simple, immediately acknowledged. Second, this is the second time it is happening with you. So they were able to narrate the factual thing as well, action oriented, where they are telling what they are going to do. Now what I will do is I will write this to the concerned team and tell them that to take action on this on a priority, right? And empathetic as well, right? Where the time bound is the 24 hours, right? And empathetic as well. Empathetic is nothing but saying that I do know that you could have had different plans and this could have definitely troubled you a lot. All right. So this is something we need to understand. Now, boilerplate. Boilerplate. Before going ahead and talking about the boilerplate, sorry. Any guess where a boilerplate statement is used? Where do the organizations use this boilerplate statement? There's a slight difference between boilerplate and whole statement. Okay, copycat and coding. Okay. At the tough situation, okay. If you don't know, no worries. I'll give you a hint. Customer care is very close. Not exactly, but very close. Industry they use, of course, they use the industry. Base for dealing. Okay, very close again. Quality control. It's not any pitch. Not exactly. Okay. Doesn't matter. They're just asking. Customer care, sales, no. Okay. Customer automated messages. Very close, Manish. She's a customer requirement, selling product, no. AI, no. Cyclical, no. Telecommunications, no. Okay. What does the organization do very regularly in a particular time interval? What does the organization? All the organization does on a quarterly interval. Meeting. What kind of meeting? Upskilling. Okay. They do that. Advertise. What kind of updates? They do so many things, but all the organizations they talk about something, right? What is it? They call this as quarterly meet, something like that. What is it? Stakeholder meeting, very close again. Update on the project. Any written text. Okay, if they want to convey something to the public, how do they do it? Business results, very close. That's the business, very close answer so far. If they want to convey something to the public and everyone, what do they have? Audit, very close again. New feature launch. How do they launch it? Quarterly sales volume, says Shreyansh, very close again, Shreyansh. Review meeting, no. Repeat code, no. Client satisfaction, no. What you are telling? I'm trying to elucidate the answer, Janvi. Annual general meeting, no. So I'm talking about the press release here. Now, if you see any organization will come up with a press release, after a profit or a loss or anything as such, right? So that press release will have a boilerplate statement. Now that boilerplate statement, okay, no worries, Janvi. So when there is a crisis, there are different kind of statements or conversations that can take place. So these are the tools for crisis communication. First one being, we just saw it a while back, which is the whole statement. The second one is a boilerplate. Third one is an apology, and fourth one is a reactive statement. So these are the four things we are talking about, Janavi. All right. Okay. So the first one is, it should be concise and clear. Again, don't give so much of briefing. Don't give so much of background over that. Be empathetic, right? And third one is truthful and transparent as well. And there should be consistent, action oriented, future focused, and adaptable. So this adaptable is what the difference here between this one and the whole statement. Right? So whole statement will help you to buy time, right? Adaptable is something where you have had a detailed analysis or where you have some good insights over a crisis, right? Generally, the press releases are called as the boilerplate statements, right? So you can look at the press release. All the press release will have these kind of templates with them. Now, the previous one I said, these whole statements are something that can immediately pacify or it can calm down the end user. Like I said, the calls, when we call someone and say there is an issue, right? So they will ensure that they have a whole statement. Now that doesn't mean they are just using the statement. They will definitely work upon it as well. But when you use it in this manner, it has a better impact, right? Okay. Please tell me significance of using same color in boiler. Okay, one sec. There is a question. No. That was just a random choice, Ifra. No specific meaning behind that. All right. Just a random one, no specific reason and all those things, right? Okay, so it should be future focused as well. Like I said, sustainable one. All right, so the solution that you have for a crisis, when it's future focused, it will ensure that the same thing doesn't happen again, right? And it should be adaptable as well. All right, so this is how a boilerplate functions. Whereas a reactive statement is nothing but very instant. A whole statement is where you get some time, but whereas when it comes to reactive statement, this is something where you can have it pre-planned, right? When having a proper reactive statement will be very helpful. So you need to brainstorm on worst case scenarios. First, have an opening statement. How do you want to start with? So today, we with a deep sense of regret announce that, something like that. I heard this somewhere when something went wrong. One particular organization was conveying this, right? So they lost something, so they were using this particular statement, and it helped us to create a kind of a listening mindset over there, right? So this is how we need to start, right? And always plan answers, like what kind of questions can come up, what kind of statements they might ask, and rehearse as much as possible, because only when you rehearse you'll be able to. So a specific PR team can actually help here, because they will be able to understand the mindset of the audience. The public relations team, they would have worked very close with the public, right? Okay, now somebody asked, why an apology? Why should I apologize? Now, when there is a crisis, it means that something did not go as expected. When I say something did not go as expected, there is someone who expected things to go in a particular way, and they would have definitely invested something over there. It can be time, it can be efforts, it can be energy, it can be hope, faith, anything, right? Now they will be terribly disappointed, or they're going to be upset for sure. So in order to ensure that they don't lose trust, they don't lose that faith that they have bestowed upon us, we need to start, in order to be empathetic as well, right? There should be some amount of apology. Now imagine when you say that you have got an incorrect product, and someone says, sorry sir, it's not our fault, it's the delivery guy who gave you an incorrect order, right? No, we will definitely be not okay with this answer. We'll be furious, right? How can you say this? You are a you should have that responsibility and accountability, right? So this is why you need you need to have that apology with you, right? Okay. It should be remorse, right? It should have some regret. It should have that that statement that conveys that remorseness. Now remorse is nothing but regret, right? And it should show the responsibility, like how are you trying to take a responsibility, right? How are you? Okay, there is a question between whole statement and boilerplate. So very simple one. See, whole statement is something that is given when there is a crisis, immediate response. Like we are working on this, we will be coming up. Okay, for example, when COVID came in, we had a whole statement, which is nobody said where a particular virus got originated from, wherever things started or how it started. But they said this is a life-threatening disease. This is something we need to be very careful about, and we need to take necessary precautions and measures. We are working on the vaccine. We will be ensuring that vaccine reaches us on time. This is the whole statement. When it came to boilerplate, after some point of time, they came up with a detailed analysis of report, like what kind of impact it had, what kind of damages it caused, and all those things, right? So much of press release you see, it will have a proper boilerplate statement. All right. Now, okay. Now, when someone says it's not our mistake, why should I apologize? Right. Now, when I say that I'm working in a team and one of my teammates has done a mistake, right? When we are part of an organization, when we are part of a team, we are working together. Now, can I say that I didn't do this mistake, my teammate did? Do you think that will go very well with someone? If you say that it is not my mistake, why should I apologize? You go ahead and ask to that person, he made the mistake, not me. All right. Okay. So many answers are no. So now you understand why we should apologize. All right. And how you should apologize using these three things. There should be some remorseness, and there should be, even if you say politely as well, sir, I don't, or ma'am, I don't think so, I'm completely responsible, or I'm anyway responsible for this. It would be better if you reach out to this person, right? Even this shows that you are not trying to take accountability there, right? So when we are a team, we are one team, right? So how can one remain empathetic and honest despite facing many inconveniences? See, you should try to think from their perspective, right? Now, when you are responsible for something, definitely the other person knows it as well, and you know that they also have some kind of accountability to it. Now when you think from their shoes, you will understand the urgency, or you will be able to understand this the accountability that they have, right? And when you ensure that apologies, yes, definitely apology also shows acceptance, right? Okay, because that shows that you have that willingness and you are keen to resolve the situation over there. All right. Okay, now when somebody said how to we be empathetic, think from their shoes, think from their situation, think from their if you were there in their situation, how would you expect and things, right? So that is where things come in. All right, see, apologizing is not really a bad thing, guys. Come on, when you plead, that's when things come in. Somebody says self-respect and all those things, right? See, saying sorry, thank you, these are golden words. It's not going to cause any damage, right? When something has gone wrong, it has gone wrong. Saying sorry is not that bad, right? So you need to think of that. You don't have to relate it with self-respect and all those stuff, right? So just think, saying that golden words can really help a lot of time. Now imagine that you're 5 minutes late to a meeting, and of course there was a bus breakdown or the roads were not good. And if you feel that if I say sorry, it's a problem to my self-respect, and if you can say that the bus was slow or the roads were not good, it's not my problem, that's not going to go very well, right? Because you could have planned your journey earlier, you could have started even earlier, right? So we need to use that golden words, right? So that's something you need to remember. All right. Yes, we need to be accountable for sure. Now, common mistakes, like I said, denying internal issues, saying not my fault, not my responsibility and stuff, covering things up or sharing unconfirmed information and having someone else talk on behalf of you will not work. All right. And so these are few things that you need to review. Like once the crisis is done, once the communication is done, how did you respond? How did you do? Have a copy of the responses, and how did it affect the company? What are the next steps and all those stuffs? All right. So these are few things you need to remember. A quick recap. These are the points we discussed. We saw what we discussed, what is a crisis and types of crisis, and identifying the key audience, the communication strategies, and reflect. This reflect is the summary of analyzing how you did and how you could have done better. All right, so these are the points we discussed. I'm taking a pause here. We do have 4 minutes, so I'm opening the floor for Q&A. So there was some question that how do I get certificates? So we will be sharing a link related to this course. You need to take that course and complete it, for which you will get certifications, right? That's one. All right, but yeah, so you can see the link as well. So our team has shared the link. Please make note of the link. Siddharth has shared it. So it's a link very, very relevant and very related to the course that we learned right now. So that can really help you to have a better understanding. Please go through that course and get further insights, and you will get the certification in that course name. All right. Okay. Now, any questions, any doubts related to the points we discussed? Okay, can we say crisis is similar to risk? See, crisis involves risk. That's how I would like to put it, Shirisha. So you need to take some risky decisions while you are in a crisis. Imagine the example of Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. So rest of the queries are basic ones and or not so related to this one. Any other questions related to the topic we discussed? Anything you wanted to share or ask or suggest? Hope you were able to learn something new. Thank you, Akila. Thanks for the confirmation. Thank you. So always try to ensure that you learn, unlearn, and relearn as well, because all of us can learn a lot, but it's important for us to put into test. Go ahead and see some of the press releases where you can see as a boilerplate, see the differences, try to craft your own boilerplate statement, whole statement. Imagine you are in a scenario like in an organization, you are there is a some escalation that has happened, or you're in a college, or there is a flood in your area, and if you were responsible for ensuring the safety of the public, how you would respond to your association or in the apartment committee and all those stuffs, right? That can really help you. So try to create these statements. All right, and you can reach out to us whenever you need some help or some doubts and queries. All right, thank you all. Thanks a lot. Have a great day and a great week ahead. Hopefully we will catch up on some other interesting session with another interesting topic just like this. All right, see you all.